Today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play college basketball pick'em, where you can get a little extra sweat during March Madness and win real cash prizes simply by picking player stats in this weekend's games. In pick'em, all you do is predict whether a player will go higher or lower on Underdog's projected totals, whether that's points, rebounds, whatever. For example, if you're like me and you think Zach Edey is going to go nuts in this tournament, pick higher on his points projection, add up to 4 more picks, and if you hit them all, you can win 20 times your money on a single game. Underdog's slick mobile app is easy enough that dummies like Jeff Goodman have even figured it out. So go to underdogfantasy.com or download the app and use the code FIELD, F-I-E-L-D, and Underdog will match your deposit up to $100. Now is the time to get in on the madness. So remember, underdogfantasy.com, promo code FIELD.
Welcome to Bear Down Ballers, presented by our partners at BetRivers and by Underdog Fantasy. Get 100% first deposit matchup to $100 with code FIELD. Welcome to the final episode of Bear Down Ballers for this season. Once again, I'm your host, AJ BRAMLETT. Got my man, super producer Ryan Wall with me. And it's not the end that we wanted to our season. Still an incredible season for these guys and Coach Lloyd. But Ryan, what were your thoughts on our Princeton experience, I'll say?
Yeah, I just think from the beginning, Arizona just didn't look like themselves. They weren't hitting shots, We've said it all year. When they turn the ball over and they shoot poorly from three, it's going to be hard to beat anyone. Obviously, like you said, we didn't expect them to lose 59-55 to Princeton, number 15 seed. Second time Arizona lost to a 15 seed. Last time was to Steve Nash many years ago. But yeah, Tabellos I thought was excellent in this game as always. Umar Ballo too ended it on a dominant note, but the shooters from the guards, they just didn't produce. What were your kind of thoughts on this overall, and your thoughts on just Kerr Kriisa with the injury, and Henderson and Ramey just couldn't really get it going at all in this game?
Yeah, it was, obviously disappointing. You have to give, a lot of credit to Princeton, though. They really jammed up and kind of took away everything that we did well in that game. And, we weren't shooting the ball well from outside. We took a lot of rush shots, especially, near the end of the game. I thought that we, just kind of felt that pressure, man. And, that's what the tournament will do to you. When you're struggling and not playing, your best game, and you're fighting a team that's gritty and scrappy like those guys were, and they just kept coming, man. And I thought obviously when we went up, we went up double digits twice in the game. The last time, went up 12, and then they come right back quick, cut that lead down. And that was really the story of the game. Kind of, they just kept battling, and we just couldn't get anything really going from outside. And so they just made it uncomfortable for us, man. And they had a good game plan. I listened to actual Kerr and Pella's podcast too, and they kind of talked about it, that they just did a really good job of taking away the shots that we normally make, and they left open, they left us with open shots, just not shots that we usually took during the year. So that's really good coaching on the other side by Princeton. And they deserve the win, obviously. We didn't play our best game. Obviously, those guards, are going to feel that. I was a part of one of those games too. Obviously, with the Utah game the year after we won the championship, where all of our guards kind of went, besides Jason Terry, went cold in the same game. It can happen, and when that happens, it's the NCAA tournament, and you're going to be out. So, overall, they had a hell of a season. Did some really good things. I thought the Pac-12 tournament championship, was amazing, and they played great in that game. That was a big time, win, and 3 wins in that. But obviously not the way that we expected, to go out and have the season end. But if you look at the season overall, these guys overachieved. They did way more than we expected, at the beginning of the season, and now it's a new landscape, it's a new year, and I think the future is bright for us.
Yeah, as you just mentioned, you've had plenty of experiences, of winning and disappointment at Arizona. But I wanted to know your thoughts on how Arizona handles this, and how do you put in perspective after having such a dominant regular season, being a top 5 to 10 team ranked nationally for most of the year, so many big wins, winning the Maui Gym Invitational early in the season, Pac-12 tournament championship, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, and then when your most recent loss is a first round loss to a 15 seed as a number 2 seed, sometimes people will overreact and call the season a failure, but in reality, they might have fouled at the end to move on to the next round, but they did have a lot of success this season.
Yeah, they did. And, obviously you're a prisoner of the moment. I was upset too. And, thought that we could have, gone deeper in the tournament, but that is the NCAA tournament for you. And so you saw it with Purdue, losing to FDU, just a day later, kind of took some of the pressure off of us, but you never want to lose early in the tournament. My senior year, we lost in the first round, to Oklahoma. It just happens. And so, but the way that we were still able to build the program, build the brand, establish Arizona again as a place where players want to play. We play a great style of basketball. You have a coach who cares about the players and their development personally and professionally. We got good recruits coming in. Next year KJ Lewis is going to be a really good high impact guy for us. You saw Kylan's development, at the end of the year. So, obviously with, we'll talk about this, but with the Kerr news and things like that, the keys are going to be turned over to him, which is great. So, it's going to be different. And really, I think also with the transfer portal, obviously we're going to be highly active in that, that kind of, diminishes the effects of it too, because there's going to be different guys in the program that weren't here this year and that are going to be able to, impact the program and won't have that feeling or stigma of, what happened in this year's NCAA tournament. So I think we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree. And stepping back and looking at the season as a whole and what Arizona did last season and Tommy Lloyd's first year, having 3 guys leave for the NBA, I don't think that can be stated enough. To just the success Arizona had and the performances, like I said, they had in big games, because they lost 3 players to the NBA, Dalen Terry, Benedict Mathurin, Christian Coloco, and then replaced them, got 2 transfers with Cedric Henderson, Courtney Ramey, and, had some players step up into roles that they might not have had before. So I agree. It was a success this season. It might not have ended the way we wanted it to, but not everything always ends as we hope. But AJ, you mentioned it briefly. Let's move on and talk about more of the offseason, some of the moves. Kerr Kriisa announced that he's entering the transfer portal, as did Adama Ball. He announced he's entering the portal too. Just what are your immediate thoughts on those guys leaving?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank, Kerr and Adama for the contributions they gave to the program. I mean, Kerr was one of the winningest, point guards, during his time, at Arizona. He was a lightning rod for a lot of people. I always loved him. Loved the fire that he played with. Up and down, hot and cold as a shooter at times. And, people question his decision making, but I thought he made strides, each year. He got better every year. And, he was a part of a lot of winning. And so, you wish him best in his next stop. Adama, we had high hopes for him, coming into this season. I think you and I both, thought that he would be a guy that by the end of the season would have made, tremendous strides and would have been a part of the rotation a lot more than he was. And so, he's got a bright future though. He's a big guard. He's talented. He's athletic. He can shoot it. And so sometimes just a change of scenery is good. And, I think you'll see both of those guys being, highly successful at the next stops, whatever programs they go to. But it opens up spots, like we said, for, Kylan to get obviously more, control of this program from the point guard position, and then opens up spots for, transfer portal and other guys. So I think in the end, I think we're going to be, looking at a really, really good team next year. Obviously we don't know what's going to happen with Zoo and Umar and things like that. But I think we're in a good position, man. The program's continuing to build. We're growing. We're national, prominence again, and that's where we need to be.
Yeah, Kerr said on his podcast recently that it's best and the decision's best for everyone involved, which I kind of agree. Like you mentioned, Kerr did have a really good career here at Arizona. He led the way being the point guard the last 2 years, winning, back-to-back Pac-12 tournament championships, which is just incredible. But I feel like that it's the time for Kylan Boswell to take the reins, like you said, to be that point guard for Arizona, as it seems like Kirk Kriisa had that opportunity for 2 years, led them to the top of the Pac-12, but it just seems like it didn't work out in March Madness as they would have hoped. But wherever he goes, we know he's a great competitor. And I think Kylan will be better for it, as he had Kirk to look at during practices in the past. And I have really high hopes for Kylan Boswell for next year. I think he is going to be an all-conference player, and I think he's going to make himself a top 15 NBA draft pick next year. And then Adama Ball, as you said, we both have harped on it all season long. We loved him and his potential, and I'm not giving up on him. Like you said, a lot of players nowadays move around, so hopefully on his second stop, he'll find some success. But you mentioned it a little bit, the other players that on Arizona's team that maybe could take the next step to the NBA or not, and those include Jules Tabellas and Umar Ballo, especially Pelle Larsson too. It seems like he's going to stay at least another year. But what do you think about Tabellas and Ballo? Do you think they're most likely going to stay? You think they're going to maybe enter their name in the draft and go through the process and then figure it out?
Yeah, I think they're going to enter. If I was them, I would enter into the process and just go through it. I mean, it's always better to just go through that, see what it's like, get feedback from teams, and then with a look to come back. I mean, look what happened to DT last year. I mean, he went in there, probably thinking that he was going to come back, and then ended up being a top 20 NBA pick. I don't know if that's going to happen, for either Umar or Zoo, but I think that just going through the process and getting that feedback from NBA teams on what they want to see from you is always a positive thing. But I see both of them coming back, man. I think if they do, obviously those are two big anchors, for us, obviously with our style of play and what we do. Those guys have played incredibly consistent basketball, pretty much all year long this season, and you just expect them to take another jump up next year. And so, whatever they choose to do, obviously we're going to support them and love them for that. But I think, for Arizona and for next year's team, if those two guys are in place, I mean, we're at a really good starting point, along with, God, obviously giving Kylan more control and then working in the transfer portal to see what guys we can bring in as well to fill out the roster.
Yeah, I think if both of those big men stay at Arizona, I think Arizona next year still could be a really special team with the second-year breakout season expected from Boswell, including Pella, like I said, hopefully returning, KJ Lewis, as you said, and Henry and Dillon off the bench. They should be getting better every single season, and they got better every game we saw them. So yeah, we hope. AJ, any other final thoughts? Because we have a really special Hall of Fame guest on the show today.
Yeah, no, I think it was just, it was a journey this year. It was a positive, building block, I think, for the program. Obviously, the loss in the tournament is not what we wanted, but, every team is going to lose except for the final champion. So, we'll be ready to bounce back, next year, start that hard work, in the spring and summer, get these guys ready to go next year. But Arizona basketball is in a great place. And, I'm just excited for the future, to be honest. So, now we have as you mentioned, the Hall of Fame guest, a guy that is a legend, at the high school level, college level, pro level, and the broadcasting level. A guy who, loves Arizona basketball, has been a part of it for many, many years, and a guy that we all know and love. The Bill Walton joins us next on Bear Down Baller. Are you looking for a debit card or gift card branded with the Arizona Wildcats? Check out Fan Cards. You can show your Wildcat pride while managing your finances. Plus, set up direct deposit for chances to win tickets to Wildcats football and men's basketball games. Visit myfancard.com to learn more and use referral code BEARDOWN when you sign up. That's myfancard.com, referral code BEARDOWN. The ultimate way to support Arizona and manage your money. All right, this is amazing. We welcome in a a guy who is a high school, college, and pro basketball legend, a man who is a two-time CIF state
I'm
champion.
Bill. AJ, how are you today? Enough with the intros, man. Let's get going. I love AJ BRAMLETT, man. What a team, what a player, what a place. Most importantly,
Absolutely.
what a dude who just has done so many different things. To come from Albuquerque, even though you were not born there, but to come from Albuquerque, that's where you kind of grew up, I guess. But then to come to Tucson and connect with a master teacher.
Oh, yeah.
I was super lucky in my life. I had a lot of master teachers. Sadly, I'm the slowest learner ever, but I got to be on some of the greatest teams ever, as you did, and now you're part of this incredible community. And to be a part of something so special, it changes your life forever. And so here we are today to celebrate. It's a beautiful spring day, freezing cold here in San Diego, but wow, what an NCAA tournament we're living through right now. This has been simply spectacular, so much fun. We always want more, but that's what we get. And so the teams have been playing fantastic. I'm really doing well in my bracket, but that's mostly because I don't fill out my bracket till after the games are over.
Smart man.
So we have a situation where there's so much good basketball going on right now, and I am just looking forward to the rest of the way. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. This has been a heck of a tournament so far. You mentioned it a little bit earlier. I just wanted to, ask you about your time with John Wooden, because obviously, it has a lot to do with Coach Olson as well. But what was your relationship like with Coach? Because I had a similar one with Coach Olson. I just want to know what John Wooden meant to you. Gotta cover that.
We cannot begin that conversation without the understanding to the audience. You know this, I know this, but Lute Olson and John Wooden were very, very close. Because when Lute came down from the upper Midwest, Minnesota, North Dakota, and then he comes to California, and he comes down near to Southern California in Anaheim, he becomes a high school coach, and then he moves over to Huntington Beach, and then he does the high school deal, and then he gets the job at Long Beach City College there, and then he gets the in all those years, because Coach Wooden was like Lute Olson. He was a selfless human being, like AJ BRAMLETT. I mean, what you do for the youth of your community, what you do for the world, that is inspirational. It's transformational, and that's what John Wooden and that's what Lute Olson did with their lives. And so many of the people in my life are now passed away. I mean, I'm 70 years old, just getting started out here, but to live that and to grow up in that environment, because my parents, the most unathletic people you've ever known. I never shot a basket with my dad. I saw him run one time at the church picnic, but his sense of being, my dad, he loved people, and he loved helping people. My dad grew up in the John Steinbeck Grapes of Wrath, Central Valley of California. His parents were public school educators and administrators. And then my dad went on to Cal, and he loved Cal. He just, Cal was like his dream. But then, as so often happens in our lives, those dreams get knocked askew. And so my dad, he got drafted into World War II and ended up fighting on the ground in France and Germany, and came home and just spent the rest of his life trying to get people to get along. And so that was the environment that I grew up in, unathletic household, but I found sports through my first coach. And my first coach was a volunteer coach, and his profession was he was a fireman, but he loved people too. And so, and all these different people, and which then went on to, I found Chick Hearn first.
Yeah.
Radio. And Chick Hearn is an incredible broadcaster.
That's right.
But more than just being a broadcaster, he was an entertainer.
Yeah.
And he just made it fun, and he would just describe the world as it was going. And I've had the privilege of working with all these fantastic broadcasters. I never called a game with Chick.
Really?
And Chick never got to broadcast not even one of Luke's games, because Chick died just before
That's right.
got there. And so while I had this incredible relationship, starting when I was probably 9 or 10 years old, with Chick on the radio, holding that little transistor to the AM transistor. Some of these people who are listening probably
they don't know what that is.
A radio, right? That you can hold in your hand, right? So the way it's all changed. And so then from Chick, then I found John Wooden also on the radio. We didn't have a TV in our house. And so, but then in the newspaper, we took the LA Times. That was the newspaper in our family home as a child in San Diego. And so I found all these incredibly special people, and who then those people at the same time went on and helped shape Lute Olson to become the man that he was. And so John Wooden was just this super cool dude, straight as can be. I mean, we just could not believe that here we were in the 60s and the 70s, and we were playing for this walking antique who was 65 years old. But he was super smart and fun, and but incredibly serious. And that's one of the problems with being the leader, one of the problems with being the coach. It's much more fun to be the player. Because when you're the coach, you don't have that much influence. You have a lot, but not complete influence. When you're the player and that ball's in your hands and that ball's up for grabs, man, you can just go for it and go wild, which is what I love to do, because I'm a lifelong stutterer. Basketball was the easiest part of my life. Academics were second. I've had endless orthopedic challenges throughout my entire adult life. I'm doing fantastic now, but my greatest challenge was I could not speak. I could not communicate. And so here I was. I used basketball as a shield, as a vehicle, as a platform to celebrate. But being unable to speak when the problems came in my life, the way they come into everybody's life, I was not able to express myself. And I always express myself through basketball.
Right.
And that came from John Wooden, because every coach and every teacher that I had as a child, I grew up in the public school systems of San Diego here, and every coach, every teacher, they were all John Wooden and Chick Hearn disciples and fans. So that's our life. Let's go. It's a privilege. We can do this today. Anything is possible, and let's work together and make the world a better place. And then as I went through and started living it myself with John Wooden, after I got there when I was 17 years old in 1970, Lute Olson was right there too.
Yep.
And so it wasn't just Lute, it was Mike Montgomery. And there was all these other great coaches, and Bill Sharman, and the Lakers were right there with Jerry and Elgin and Wilt and Gail Goodrich and Pat Riley and Keith Erickson and Flynn Robinson and Stu Lance. And that was just my life that I lived. And I thought everybody had the same exact life.
Right. And they don't. They do not.
No. And then I joined the NBA. And I realized that, wait a second, okay, I kind of blew this whole thing. But I'm trying to make amends for it. And the relationship that I had with John Wooden changed over all the years. I mean, I was with him for 43 years. So I probably met Lute in the early 70s. So that would have been a really long-term relationship as well. But the similarities between them, the style, the culture, the values, the characteristics, and the sense that while it was a celebration of life and super fun, but that it was a privilege.
Always.
That I did not understand until I could no longer play, until the injuries took me away from what I love so much. And so, but that's when their teachings, because I knew Bobby as you did, and we all know Kelly and all the people that surrounded Lute, and that great Tucson community and the support and the big red army of the West. I love so much. And I was just watching the U of A Princeton game. That just took place a week ago or whenever. Because when you get to my age, you remember what happened. You remember who was there, where it was, but you can't remember when it was.
It all runs together, yeah.
Was it yesterday or was it 22 years ago? Anyway, so we have a whole bunch of loyalties and children and everything. And so the fact that Princeton was involved in this game, because while Luke went to Arizona, another one of our sons went to Princeton.
Yep, that's right.
The texting that was going back and forth all day long and during the game. But we also have loyalties to UCLA, to LSU, and to San Diego State, and to Harvard. And so we want all of those teams to do very, very well. And so when that Princeton U of A game went down recently, oh my gosh, what just a smoldering cauldron of everything in life, emotions. And because Arizona is such a great program, and then Tommy Lloyd, you look at the coaches in my lifetime, the four real coaches that U of A have had. You're talking about Fred Snowden, you're talking about Wilson, and you're talking about Sean Miller, and you're talking about Tommy Lloyd. All these coaches who I would love to have played for. I mean, I got the privilege, AJ, of playing for some of the greatest coaches ever, but I would have been honored and fortunate and privileged to have played for any one of those four U of A coaches, the Fox, Lute Olson, Sean Miller, and Tommy Lloyd. And to see this game go down with Princeton, because I love Princeton basketball. With all the children that San Diego was home for us. Right. They all went to different schools. And because of location, because of my life and my career and the traveling responsibilities that go with my career, is that I was able to go to Nate's games in Princeton, which is the furthest away, other end of the world, right? I was able to go to more of those games than anybody's.
Right.
Even Chris, the youngest at San Diego State, which is just 10 miles away. And my mom went to school, right? And so, but I was working in New York a lot in those days of the NBA studio shows, television on the weekends, and Ivy League only plays on the weekends. And I don't know exactly what it is now. I was told that they only play one game a week now. I'm not really sure of that. Wow. In those days, 25 years ago, when Nate was going to Princeton, they played on Friday and Saturday nights. And so I would travel in on Friday and fly into New York, get the car down to Princeton, see the game on Friday night, go back into New York, come back on Saturday, see the Saturday night game, do the show on Sunday. And Nate would often come up there and to see what they had done, because Princeton, I fell in love with Princeton basketball with Bill Bradley in the mid-'60s, before you were born. I mean, I'm 25 years older than you are. And so
I'm getting up there now. So.
There's the way you're catching me, because I'm doing better than ever right now.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
And then when Nathan was at Princeton, he was there 4 years. But when his last year I know that your high school recruiting story to come and be the starting center on the championship team for Lute Olson, and how big a moment that is for you, right?
Absolutely.
So Nate had committed in 1996 to go to Princeton. And UCLA in the 96 tournament was the reigning champion.
Yep.
And Nate is going to Princeton. And the tournament schedule comes out, and round one, game one is Princeton, UCLA in Indianapolis. And so Indianapolis, that's where Larry Bird's from, and that's where Larry Brown was coaching, and that's where Reggie Miller was playing. And so when it came out, Nate and I, we looked at each other and just the lights went on. And so we made the arrangements for Nate to go back as a high school senior for that game, right, in the early rounds of the tournament. And so he goes back there, and Larry Brown and Reggie Miller and David Kahn, everybody just took super great care of Nathan Walton back there as just a high school senior just getting started. And then the game starts, and oh my gosh, it's very much like this U of A Princeton game, just a short time ago, right? And so here it was, and they're playing and Lori and I both went to UCLA and we love UCLA, and so the game is happening, but we love our children more than we love ourselves. That's what happens when you're.
We all do. Yeah, that's right.
and so it's happening and it's playing, and all of a sudden it's down to the very last play of the game, and Princeton runs a backdoor pass.
Yep.
They win the game, and
Yep.
they are so happy. And then we can see Nathan. Nathan is with the team, and he's in high school. So he's running off the court with his hands in the air, and then he goes outside the locker room, out of the Princeton locker room there in the arena, and he finds a payphone and he calls us, and we pick up the phone. This is in the days of landline telephones.
That's right.
And Nate is screaming, and you can hear the team in the background screaming, "We beat UCLA, we beat Johnny Wooden, we beat Kareem, we beat them all, yeah, go Tigers." And so that goes on in our lives. Nate goes and plays at Princeton, and 4 years there, they make the NCAA tournament 3 times.
Yeah.
And all his teammates are still his best friends. Mitch Henderson, who's the current coach. And then you got Brian Earl, who's the coach over at Cornell. And then this most interesting player was named Steve Goodrich, who was the center of the team. Now,
yeah.
I'm not going to be able to say accurately how tall he is, because everybody under 6'10" looks exactly the same to me.
I know the feeling.
So Steve was, when I would watch Steve, I'd watch, we'd go down to Jadwin Gym, Pete Carrill, like Lute Olson, had laid the foundation like John Wooden, but Pete did not coach Nate. Pete, his last year was the year 96. Pete coached the team that beat him in 96. But Nate's first year, Pete Carrill had retired. So Pete was a great friend, and it was just wonderful. And this guy, Steve Goodrich, who I would watch play, and I'm spending all my time in those days at the NBA, some in college, but mostly in the NBA as a broadcaster. And Steve Goodrich was one of the 5 most interesting players that in the game, in all levels of basketball, because he could do everything, and it was just a thing of beauty the way they played. And then to transition to the way it came around to this last week, and to see them play against the mighty Big Red Army of the West, and to see how happy those players were, to see it. How often do you ever see a coach smile? I mean, I think that's a real. It's a real reflection of what we've become. The value and the importance and the power of sports, which is supposed to be about fun and health and learning all these different aspects of life, how to deal with success and failure, to work in a team concept, to prepare, to discipline yourself, all those values that you are supposed to learn. And then the coach is just right now just always frowning and everything. Not that Coach Wood never smiled. We tried.
Yeah.
We tried with everything we had, AJ, to get the guy to smile, right? But he gave up his life. You know how you've given up yours so that all the projects you're in with the youth of New Mexico and lifting other people up. I mean, that's what John Wooden did. And that's really the sacrifice and the price you pay as a leader, because the leader is never happy.
Yeah.
Because the leader's always concerned with what's next. And so to see Tommy Lloyd, who I just love, and I've known Tommy forever. He grew up just outside of Portland there, where I was playing with the Blazers, and a big Blazer fan. Tommy Lloyd's a fan of life, right?
I love the way he coaches.
Right.
I love the way he coaches.
It's just a super fun style, and we just saw his mentor Mark Few just take down the Bruins again. And then we're watching this game and like, oh my gosh, it's right there. And all these games between UCLA and Gonzaga, they just come right down to it. And then when the game is over and the guy makes the long 3 to win the game, after Timmy just put on a beautiful demonstration of how you play basketball. I mean,
always
quickness, footwork, balance, skill, left hand, right line, creative imagination is all right there. And then when Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs, when they take down the Bruins last night, then I'm sitting there, I say, wow, because I was there in the early 2000s. I think it was 2006 when Lori and I went to the game in Oakland when Gonzaga was #1.
Yeah.
And they had Adam Morrison.
Yep.
And UCLA was so far behind. And then in the closing moments, it just like boom, all the floodgates open. UCLA comes back, and we don't even know. We couldn't even tell if UCLA had won. It was that crazy of a game, right? And so that, Adam sadly ended up on the ground, and just
I remember that. Yeah, iconic moment.
The desperation and the sadness. But we're UCLA, so we were super happy. And we ended up in a Mexican restaurant in San Francisco, and we taught the mariachi band the UCLA fight song.
Awesome.
It was just absolutely incredible. And we still can't remember who won the game and how it happened. But we walked out of there. We did not need a car or a plane to get anywhere. We were just floating. It was so
cloud nine.
And that's the power and value of sport, right?
That's
and
right.
So I'm watching the game last night, and it comes to my attention that UCLA and Gonzaga have played 8 times, only 8 times in both schools' illustrious history. UCLA's is a lot longer than Gonzaga is, but Mark Few's only been coaching there for 20 plus years.
Right.
And John Wooden, John Wooden started before I was born, and that was a long time ago. And so, but UCLA is 2-6 lifetime.
Wow.
Gonzaga. And that is staggering. But for what Mark Few has been able to do, and that is the power of coaching. And that's the power of what you do with all these children and how you're shaping the future. And why I love coming on this show so much. Excuse me.
I appreciate you for that. Why do you think it's been so long since the West Coast team has won the national championship? I think our Arizona team was the last one to do it, 97.
Yes, certainly a shift in culture. And the rest of the country realizing, as the Pac-12 or whatever it was in those days coming up, I was the Pac-8.
Yeah, we were Pac-10.
Before me was the Pac-6, then it was the Pac-10, and now the Pac-12. But it's all the same, as things change, as people move and change teams and change everything, it still remains the same. That focus, that concentration that we have, and that locus, that nexus of why we're attached to this something that is so powerful that draws us in and creates the loyalty, right? But with all the success that UCLA, Arizona, USC, Oregon, all these great schools, Washington, because in the Pac-12 Conference of Champions, 11 of the schools have made it to the Final Four. 6 of the 12 schools have won the championship. And so while the Pac-12 has been dominant for all those years, then people start saying, well, wait a second, what about us? And so they then begin investing in whatever it takes, the arenas, the players, the big red army of the West, whatever it is that we value, that will thrive. And because people will see it as something, hey man, look how much fun they're having. We got to try that. And
That's right.
So they come and then they come in and then, because the lifestyle that we have in the West is completely different from everything east of the Rockies. And it's like, okay, we have the Conference of Champions, and then we got a lot of truck stops out there. So the situation where we're continuing to strive, but the other teams are doing well.
Yeah.
And so as the other coaches and programs have come in and taken so many of our players from the West to their programs, as the teaching methods, the style, the identity and the culture that makes us so great in the Conference of Champions has been absconded with. And now it's our responsibility to get it back.
That makes sense.
To make sure that all the young players growing up stay here, because this is where they're all going to come back and live anyway.
Right.
So why do they go there? But but also another one of the cultural differences is that here where we live, people don't spend their whole lives sitting on the couch watching television. And so in the Conference of Champions, we're out living, we're out doing things, we're participants in the game of life. We're
That's right.
Citizens, and we're doing our days are full. And that is not the case with a lot of these other places. And so the economics have shifted dramatically, where everything is powered by television. 80% of the television households in America are east of Chicago. And so with that being the focus and the recruiting changes and the way that they would use the power of television with the recruits to say, why do you want to play in the Western time, the Pacific time zone, when everybody who is watching television is already asleep?
Right.
And so, it's different, but we cannot make excuses. Our challenge is to be great. And I was lucky. I wanted to be great. And that was little Billy growing up. I mean, I wanted to be great from the very beginning. And I wanted to be the best. But I realized early on that I needed a coach. I needed teammates. I needed a platform. And I need that audience. I need that, that fan base. And we had that at UCLA, and you have that at Arizona.
Yeah.
And now it's the challenge for everybody else. But the game has changed so much. I mean, and all the different elements that have impacted that change. From my historical perspective, with Bill Russell, my favorite player ever, and that new Netflix documentary is over.
It's amazing.
Wilt, I just wish that they would do more movies on Wilt, because if Wilt and Pete Maravich played today, they would each have their own channel. ESPN Wilt, ESPN Pete. Because they were just so far ahead of everything. And then Oscar, who was incredible, Kareem, who was the best I ever played against by far, Larry Bird.
My dad's favorite player of all time.
Larry Bird?
It's Kareem. Kareem by far.
Kareem. It's incredible, because when you talk, it's all the generation that you grow up with. I'm old enough to know a lot of the guys. So many of them are now passed, but who were there at the beginning of the NBA. And every one of those guys, every one of them will tell you that Bob Cousy was the greatest player ever. And wow. then Bill Russell comes along and changes everything. And those fans will say Bill Russell was the greatest. And then Wilt comes along. And then Oscar, he's the greatest. Then Kareem, he's the greatest. And then Larry Bird, who was the best player I ever played with. And then Magic, just absolutely spectacular. And then Michael Jordan.
Yep.
And then, and today, and then there's been so many great players. And I believe in evolution. I believe in the growth and the learning. I learned how to play basketball from listening to Chick Hearn on the radio. And then
Jello's Jiglet. The Jello's Jiglet.
Left to right across your radio dial, a bird's eye view from high above the western sidelines. And just as a stutterer, for me to listen to Chick, and just a dream, if I could only talk a little bit. And I learned how to speak when I was 28 years old. The people who have known me the longest, they preferred the Bill Walton.
How did you overcome? How did you overcome that?
I was taught how to learn how to speak, and I did not realize that speech was a skill like anything and everything else. I just thought that was the way it was. I thought that with my foot problems, I thought that everybody's feet hurt all the time. And then with my speech problems, I just thought everybody who could talk was just lucky, and everybody who couldn't, that was just the way it was. And I could not speak. And so it was Marty Glickman, who was a legendary broadcaster, who has I recommend the book Marty Glickman, The Fastest Kid on the Block, the Marty Glickman movie called Marty Glickman. It's on HBO on demand, and it's just a spectacular story, tragic story, because of the anti-Semitism that completely impacted his life. But Marty, he took the worst in life and he turned it into the best. In that, when the worst thing happened to him, which was Adolf Hitler not letting him participate in conjunction with Avery Brundage representing the United States, just a tragic story, perfectly told in Fastest Kid on the Block, perfectly told in the movie Glickman. When Marty could not participate because he was Jewish,
yeah,
that just crushed him. And it was, and like with Bill Russell,
same with Bill, yeah.
So many of the people, so much of our world is based on the color of your skin or your religious affiliation or whatever, and that's one of the reasons why when I'm up against it. There's I always turn the music on. Sorry, I had the music on at the beginning of the show.
I love it. Me too. I'm the same way. Same way.
Trying to get into the rhythm, man, trying to find it. And so some of the songs I listen to all the time are Jerry Garcia, The Bright Side of the Road, Jerry Garcia, See What Love Can Do, Jerry Garcia, Mission in the Rain, and then Bob Dylan, Chimes of Freedom. And
that was on my list to ask you what some of your favorite songs were, Grateful Dead songs. And so
I love them all, because with the Grateful Dead, when one of the endless reasons I love the Grateful Dead is that in those days they played all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, literally every weekend. I mean, it was like a basketball get to see that never ended, right? There was just always a show. And here in California, and in those early days of PSA Airlines, Pacific Southwest Airlines, right, which was a precursor to Southwest Airlines, right?
Yeah.
And where they just had these, because people didn't fly in those days. People started flying commercially and in the 50s, but didn't really fly recreational until the 60s and into the 70s. And so PSA would have these specials, right, where you, for $20, which was a lot of money, you could buy a weekend pass and fly anywhere. And so there'd be deadheads everywhere on the planes, and they never checked ID, and it was fantastic. We had the
glorious time.
It was fantastic. And so it was just so much fun and just so joyous, and the similarities between the Grateful Dead and basketball and success. I mean, it always comes down to leadership. Jerry was a fantastic leader, and the team's doing better than ever, but the roster has changed. Jerry's passed away, and Brett Midland has passed away, and Pigpen has passed away, and the drummers are still going. Bill Kreutzmann and Mickey Hart. Bob Weir is still out there in front, but Bob Weir, nobody has spent more time on stage in life than Bob Weir. Not only because their concerts are fabulously long, it's never long enough, but they also play so often.
Right.
And so, but with the Grateful Dead, it's all one song.
Right.
And it just all rolls in. It's all one show. And they're coming out with a new tour this summer. They've announced it as their final tour. And
so you're going to be at all of those then? You're going to be at every stop?
Lori and I, we're going to be out there. We're going to be out there as much as we possibly can. There's all kinds of things going down right now. I mean, it's really an exciting time. We got the NCAA tournament. We got the final tour coming up. ESPN is releasing a 30 for 30 on me that's coming up.
Awesome.
Just all kinds of projects, and I've never been busier in my life. And I'm happy as can be. I'm healthy as can be, and
that's the biggest thing. I'm happy that you're healthy now.
Oh man, I spent half my adult life in the hospital.
Yeah,
and it's so lonely, and it's so brutal, and it's one thing you learn when you become old and in the way like I am is that you have to learn to embrace and anticipate, learn to cherish, and learn to love the risk. and the doubt and the uncertainty that is always there, always. But when you're young, you just, oh yeah, okay, here we go. We got another one of these, right? It just doesn't work like that. And so when you're lying in that hospital bed, man, and you don't know if you're going to be able to get up, that's a tough deal. And that's where all the lessons of life that you learn, that's where it comes into play. And that's when your friendships and your family and my wife, Lori, is just the greatest everything ever. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, man. I'm alive and I'm just going full speed ahead. And I'm on bear down ballers, man. Let's go.
That's right, baby.
Now ballers, and that sounds like an auto repair shop.
I love you.
One of the things when you're out on your bike, which I do a lot, and I was out this morning. It was a beautiful morning, beautiful. But you see so much.
Yeah.
Because one of the challenges that we have right now with a world that seems to have gone dark and mean before our eyes is that we all tend to lock ourselves in our houses, lock ourselves in our cars, and try to shut everything else out. And that's a mistake. I don't like that. I'm a people person, man. I want to be out there. I want to be at the game. I want to be in the game. I want to be on the stage. I want to be at the show. I love going through the airports and some of the most interesting experiences I've ever had in my life is when somebody calls my name as I've already passed. And I tell myself far too often, just keep going. But when I do turn around and look and see who it was, wow, some of the greatest things ever that have ever happened to me come into being. Wow. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing great, man. I mean,
great?
Kids are doing good. Growing up, high school, almost.
How many children now?
I have two boys, a junior in high school here in Albuquerque, an eighth grader, and then my girlfriend has a daughter, 20 years old, that's going to UNM here in Albuquerque.
Oh man, I love New Mexico.
Oh yeah.
So I used to take, my life changes all the time, and I used to do these fantastic bike rides, where I'd block out 10 days in a certain part of the country.
Yeah.
Oregon, Northern California, Utah, the southern parts of Utah, right? And the next one that I had planned is in southern Colorado, southwestern Colorado, and down into New Mexico, starting in Grand Junction and ending in Albuquerque.
Okay.
I just haven't been able to do it. Always an aspect of time, which is right. Valuable asset along with health and family. But then, because I work all the time. I mean, I've never been busier. It's just nonstop, just the constant scramble for everything to keep it going, because that's what Arizona basketball has always been about. And that's what I try to be about myself, is keeping it going. And fortunately in Arizona, you got a fantastic president, Bobby Robbins, who is just this special force of nature in every single way, and he comes off as quiet, nice Southern, I think Mississippi gentleman, right, and everything. But boy, when push comes to shove, I want to be on his side. And then Dave Hickey is just tremendous, and all the different people that are involved in that incredible basketball program at the U of A, which has been able to sustain. And a lot of that has to, the coaches that we talked about, but also the community and the culture that has been created by the Desert Fox, Coach Snowden, and by then Lute Olson, and then Sean Miller, who kept it going, and now Tommy Lloyd, who's keeping it going. And the fans, you land there, and while things have changed, and the billboards are all different every time you come in, but one thing stays the same, man. The fan, everybody there knows exactly what's going on. Bill, who's going to win tonight? Bill,
That's
how's
right.
the health of the team? Bill, hello. And wherever you go, in the airport rent-a-car counter, the hotel check-in place, the restaurants, and just the commitment to excellence and the search for perfection. It's what you dream for in life. We had that.
Yeah,
We had that at
absolutely.
UCLA. It went away. And then the fan base was decimated and beat down, but now with Mick Cronin, it's back. Fantastic. And we had that in Portland, but that's been beaten down, but it's still Damian Lillard is phenomenal, incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
The Boston Celtics, just remarkable, that fan base. And then the Clippers, and the Clippers with the change to Steve Ballmer. If you ever doubt the value of leadership, just look and see what the Clippers have become under Steve Ballmer. Now it's just the model of perfection and excellence, and everybody just wants to be there, and it's just incredible. And we thank Steve Ballmer for his life, which has given us ours. Yeah.
Great, dude. Well, listen, when you come down to Albuquerque, whenever you finally do.
So Albuquerque, right?
I'm taking you to dinner. Taking you to dinner after.
I went to a great place the last time I was there. I do a lot of work on the corporate speaking circuit. And so I come to Albuquerque a bunch, and they always steer me down. I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head. I'm a little bit behind because these games just go on all night long now, which is so fun. And one of the things that I love about these games in the NCAA tournament is that it matters who wins.
Exactly right.
So, Bill Russell was my guy. I played to win. And while John Wooden never talked about winning and losing, John Wooden rarely talked about basketball, but what he talked about was effort, commitment, sacrifice, discipline, and to becoming the best you that you can be. And so here I am now, with Albuquerque, and I get there and it's just so beautiful. And I can't think of the names of the places right now, but, the river valleys and the mountains and the colors and the sky. And then when I fly in for when the Grateful Dead come there. Now, what's the name of the concert venue just southeast of the airport where you get on
Isleta Amphitheater.
Okay. The last time we were there, right, we get off the plane, we get the car, and Lori and I are driving, and the wind is blowing 1,000 miles an hour, right? And like people can't even, because when the Deads are playing, people are coming. I mean, it's like a big giant magnet, and everybody is coming, but they can't walk because it's so windy, right? And we're saying, "Oh my gosh, what are we doing here? Should we just
That's commitment.
Airport and go home?" But no, man, it's the Grateful Dead. We got to go. The show will go on. So we get there, and we're backstage and everything, and it's just fantastic. We're inside. But we're over here in the band saying, we may have to cancel this show because the wind is blowing so hard. And so they have these big video screens. I mean, the Grateful Dead's use of technology is over the top. And so they had to take the big video screens down because they were going to just blow away and hurt people and just crush people, and because they're massive, right? And so it's okay. Well, are we going to start we can't start the show. The wind is blowing 1,000 miles an hour, and there's dust everywhere, and you can't see anything. And say, well, let's give it 5 more minutes, right? And so when they said that, it slowed down just a little bit. And so they said, well, I think we might get a break. Let's go out on the stage and try something. And so they walked out on the stage. Lori and I scurried around as quick as we could, get to our seats. And right when they took the stage, the wind stopped. And it was perfect. And we just went all night long, and they were just jamming for you, and dreaming. It was just perfect. And then everybody lived happily ever after. It was just wonderful. I love Albuquerque, and I love you, AJ BRAMLETT, man. What a privilege for me. And I'm so glad you got the picture of Lute up there behind you. And,
absolutely.
cool. And to be in the top 10 in rebounding all time, man, I love rebounding because that's what controls the game. And I was staggered watching that Princeton U of A game when
they all rebounded us. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Princeton out rebounded Arizona. And wow, I mean, but I love Princeton basketball. And Princeton didn't really play that well. I mean, they always play well. I just love Princeton basketball. And so I talked to you earlier about the success that Nathan had and everything, and how that led into so many different opportunities for Nathan, who's doing fabulous in business and life and everything.
Good.
During that game, man, they were just all texting each other against Arizona, and then they all flew in the next day from wherever they were around the world to see them take down Missouri, right? And Missouri, they really played.
So are they going to get that win tonight? Princeton, do you think they're going to win tonight?
Yes, they got it going.
Yeah.
But the beauty of Princeton basketball is that it's all about skill, which is the game I grew up with a skill game. Now, I grew to be a tall player, but the power game, that was never really my game. My game was about skill and mobility, and that's what Princeton has. And the way they move the ball, their footwork, the way they break the press, the way they position themselves for rebounds. And it's just an absolute thing of beauty. And to see the physical fitness level of these guys. But then Monday morning, man, they're right back in their astrophysics and biophysics.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. What an absolute thing of beauty here to witness that and to see other people so happy.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I learned as both of my parents passed away. Yeah, and they remained happy, even though the opportunities for bitterness and cynicism and complaining and whining comes into life as you get near the end there. It didn't happen for them. John Wooden the same way. John Wooden remained positive, upbeat, happy, engaged all the way to the end. Chick Hearn was that way. Chick Hearn died on the job, and it was just.
That's how he would have wanted to go too.
Chick, that's the way I want to go. I want to die on the job, man. I love my job. And then my first coach, Rocky, he was a volunteer at our elementary school for 59 years. He died on the job. Yeah, so I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Never more so than being on Bear Down Ballers, which I found out is not an auto shop.
You learned a lot of things today. Did you take that with you?
Yeah, Albuquerque. Right.
So last question for you, then I'll let you get out of here. I know you're busy.
There's never a last question, but the games are going to start here. Was
Arizona robbed in the 2001 national championship game against Duke with your son Luke participating?
No. Arizona played their best game the night before against Michigan State.
Yeah.
If they had played that game against Duke, they would have beat Duke. Duke was a really good team.
They were.
I grew up in the culture that the other team was irrelevant cannon fodder, and if we take care of our game, if we're great, we're going to win. And it's very, very difficult when you're young to know all these things. And because most young players, myself as the prime example, we don't listen to the coach. The coach, I was so lucky to play for all these coaches who were much, much older than me and totally experienced. Everything John Wooden ever said, which I didn't believe a word of it, everything he said came true. Everything.
That's right.
Here we were in Minnesota. I was there working with CBS and Greg Gumbel at the time on the studio show. And I was just so excited because I'd been calling the games all the way up with Dick Enberg. And Dick Enberg, we were in the game and down in San Antonio with the Alamo Dome. And it was just this incredible game, man. And Eugene Edgerson and Richard Jefferson and Jason Gardner and Gilbert Arenas and Lauren Woods. Phenomenal players, right? And Dick hadn't really seen much of them all season long. And Lori and I had been going to all these games whenever I could get a break to fly over to Tucson. And so I just was so fired up for that game against Illinois down in the Alamo Dome, and they just it was that was as great a game, man, as I think I've ever been involved in. That was the day that, you know, Luke is a lot like me. He's very quiet and shy and reserved, and so after the game. After the game, I'm just so proud as a dad, right? So proud, because what is better than young people succeeding in life? And so I wait for him outside the locker room. He comes out. You know, he's very, very shy, and you know, he had made some positive contributions to the effort and the cause that day, and the Wildcats won, and all was right in the world, right? And everybody was just so happy. And Luke comes out and he looks up at me with the sad, soft eyes of a son who just wanted more from his dad, a dad who wasn't able to always be the dad because of my life and the career that I've had. And Luke looks up at me, puts his hand out and says, "Dad, thanks for coming, Dad." Oh, thanks for coming. And I just broke down in tears, man. It was, I'll never forget that moment my entire life. And then they go up to Minnesota after beating Illinois, and a huge crowd in big dome there in Minnesota. They take on Michigan State and Tom Izzo and everything, and they trounce them.
Yeah, they killed them.
My experience in watching the Final Fours are the teams that play the best on Saturday night and crush the opponents generally don't play that great Monday night, because I believe that for the young players, it's incredibly hard to know that you have to come down to get back up. And the greatest of champions, you know, that ability to always find the edge. Kareem always had the edge. You know, Bill Russell always had the edge. And one of the great scenes in that movie, Netflix, you know, because Bill, I mean, life was not good to Bill Russell. I mean, and why? Because of the color of his skin.
Yeah.
And how awful is that? And what a stain and stigma on us that is the case to this day, which drives me nuts. Right. But then Sat Sanders, who was just fabulous in that throughout the whole movie. Sat's got his bow tie on and everything. He's just giving all the talks because so many of Bill's teammates are dead.
Yeah.
And so here it was. Sat Sanders comes on in one of his many appearances during the movie. And I'm going to clean up the language a little bit because I don't try not to use bad language like that. But Satch comes on and he says, "Bill Russell, he was always mad as can be." And then he takes a pause, and I forget which element of the movie that they were telling about something bad had happened to Bill. And Satch says, "Bill Russell was always mad, but this time he was really, really mad, and he just destroyed everything." And then that ability to be at your best when your best is needed. That's what the championship is all about. And that's what great coaches teach you how to do. And I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I get to spend the afternoon with AJ BRAMLETT on Bear Down Ballers. And now I get to go watch San Diego State, my mom's alma mater, Chris's alma mater. And then I get to watch Princeton, Nate's alma mater.
Right.
And then we got just so many different schools to root for all the time. It's going to be just a wonderful climatic moment. But like the Grateful Dead, things never end. There's no beginning, there's no end. It just keeps going. Now, I want to be a part of that turning wheel. Yeah, every time that wheel goes round, we're bound to cover just a little more ground. And the next time the Grateful Dead come to Albuquerque, I'm going to swing by, pick you up, and we're going to go down to Isleta, the island in the sky. Isn't that what it's called, or something like that?
Right.
And we're just going to hope and pray that the wind is not blowing that day. Although Bob Weir, he did sing. I think he might have even started the show with Black-Throated Wind, which is so. Right now, I'm my throat doing great. Thanks for having me, AJ.
Thank you so much, Bill. Hey, you're welcome anytime, and when you're in Albuquerque, we're going to do it, my friend. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your kindness. Thanks for your generosity. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your life.
Thank you for being you, sir. Appreciate you.
Yeah, bear down, baller.
Bear down, baby.
Reality, where we come to grow and where the deal goes down.
Yes.
At number 42 in your program, number 1 in your heart. Let's go.
I love you, man. Thank you.
Love you, AJ. Great to see you.
You too. Appreciate you, Bill. Thank you.